Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
And now, comics.
Hello and welcome to And Now Comics. I'm Lou Gonzalez. Joining me this week is John Seiler.
It took a couple of weeks, but my Hoxpox finally cleared up.
And we also have Connor Irving.
I told you, I wanted my steak medium rare.
But the fire burns within so deeply, and I can only speak in like weird syllables. And
Shakespearean talk.
yeah, so we'll get to that. Well, let's start off with some news. So, as our news correspondent John, take us through the stories of the week.
It's like coming right in.
Yeah.
Breaking news.
I do think that there's one I want to leave for last that I want to talk about the most, which is Pockets McGee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So to start off with X-Men news. Myron McTaggart looks like that she'll have her own miniseries in a couple of months. That's basically going to weave in continuity hiccups to like the X-Men and the regular Marvel EU.
It makes a lot of sense that they need to do like a little now that the main kind of like reset of them, like it needs to be rewoven. It's like they've ripped out all the mutants. Now they have to like shove them back in, and like the pieces don't exactly fit. So you need some sort of something to stitch it back in.
And then along with this, in February 2020, a new X-Men X Corp with art by Carmen Carnero. But it didn't have like a.
There's like nothing on it. Like I'm looking at it. X Corp was like a book at some point. It's like the creative, or like let's see, the artist is from X Factor and X-Men Red. X Corp or X Corps or X Corporation was a Joe Casey and Ron Garney. It was an Uncanny X-Men thing. They were a paramilitary group led by Banshee. And Grant Morrison tweaked it during his new X-Men run, making them like a support team for mutants around the world. Kind of like a Batman Inc., but for X-Men.
Okay, so I was looking to see like who the writer for this book was, and it's like very rare you see Marvel ever tout a book being announced by an artist and not with a writer. But it looks like this is not the Vita Ayla or the Leah Williams X-Men books that have been rumored as part of set 2 of the Dawn of X-Men stuff. So I assume we'll probably get like word on who's writing this book soon. Someone also said that it would be Kieran Gillen, Jordan D. White, who's the group editor for X-Men, and Hickman, and trying to get him on board with X-Men stuff. And the whole entire like multiple Sinisters and Bar Sinister and like a lot of that stuff is from Kieran Gillen's Uncanny run. So
yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
The other Marvel book that got announced was that there's going to be a new Hawkeye series from Matthew Rosenberg and Otto Schmidt. Matthew Rosenberg, a lot of people probably know him as the writer for Uncanny X-Men before entire Hoxpox started. He also did a run Punisher, 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank for Black Mask. Pretty solid writer. Otto Schmidt is a really funny choice for an artist for this book, because Otto Schmidt was the artist for the Rebirth Green Arrow. So Otto Schmidt went from one archer to another.
Well, I mean, he's good at drawing bows, so he might as well keep doing it.
But yeah, there's supposed to be a new Ronin involved. The Hood will be back. Parker Robbins,
cool.
Who's a villain we haven't seen in quite a while. I don't know. I mean, with Otto Schmidt doing the art, it's going to look really good.
I like the idea of Ronin being like this thing that gets passed around, but I'm trying to think. So like Hawkeye's worn it, Echo wore it. I'm trying to think who else.
Danny Rand, I think, was
yeah, and the Ultimate version, Moon Knight wore it. I'm trying to think if anybody else has worn it, but like I feel like I just don't want it to become like a thing that like, oh, like this is like what we do with like something, like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just don't want it to get played out.
I'm a little sad that this doesn't seem like it's going to be a Kate book, but hopefully Kate does show up in it, because
isn't she leading like the West Coast Adventures?
That book's canceled.
Oh fuck! I'm sorry.
That book got canceled 6 months ago, man.
Ah shit! Fuck.
Oh, apparently also a Red Guardian was, or I'm sorry, an LMD of Red Guardian was Ronin at one point,
Who?
Oh.
and Blade.
Oh,
That
that's
makes sense
great.
though. He's already got a blade.
Yeah, he was like, what it says, he was part of the Mighty Avengers team as Ronin for a bit.
And then probably the biggest Marvel news of the week is that Kevin Feige is taking over Marvel publishing and TV creative.
Yeah, well, it's more like they gave him a promotion. Like Disney gave him a promotion / better title, where basically he's king of Marvel now.
So Marvel Entertainment president Dan Buckley will now directly report to Feige for creative.
Yes,
Which
comic wise, I don't think this is a big deal because I don't think he's gonna screw with it. I think this was more like a TV movie thing with all the apps coming out, like the app coming out, and gets kind of gets rid of Perlmutter, kind of.
Yeah, this
having
was
anything.
probably seen as like their next big thing of like kind of taking over slowly of the brand.
Because like we've said, they have done a very good job of using the comics to kind of advertise the characters and then work through storylines. So I really don't think that this will have big effects in the comic books, although everybody's always like, Disney's gonna Disneyfy anything, and then they're like, oh, Deadpool's gonna still be R-rated. Big surprise to everybody.
So also Joe Quesada will continue to be executive vice president, creative director of Marvel Entertainment, reporting up to Buckley, and then VP of content creator development Sana Amada, editor-in-chief, head of editorial Stevie Sapolsky, and VP of creative and content development Stephen Wacker will remain in their roles. Yeah, I mean, it just basically looks like everything is like they got a new boss to talk to, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's more of like I said, I think it's more of a like the restructuring thing that they've been talking about that they want to do, and with the idea of this app going forward, maybe they do something like DC did and give us like the Marvel Unlimited is connected to some of this stuff, and like they do a bundle with that, and having one person kind of, the company is so big now, for better or worse, however you feel, like it kind of needs somebody to run that thing. It's what they've had at ESPN for forever. So it makes sense that they would do the same to everything else. Because what's her name is still running Star Wars for now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the non-Liefeld story that's last on this list is that Image Comics is to be launching a new creator-led imprint, kind of like how DC has Young Animal and Wonder Comics. Dark Horse has Burger Books. So going forward, Image would be having like their own imprint of comics with the idea of like someone else being at the top to basically be a curator. Somehow this is different than them currently having Skybound or Top Cow, Shadowline, but I don't know. Like, I don't buy Top Cow books because I feel like Top Cow books are always curated. Like I buy an Image book sometimes that happens to be Skybound or Shadowline, but it's not something I actively seek out. So maybe having like a top level creator as an editor or like a curator for a book line would make me as a reader more excited for some of these books.
Yeah, it makes it a little hard to jump on. Like the only Image books I've really dove into are from you guys. And like one, which then I didn't put it on my list. I guess my comic book store just never ordered it again, was like this one book called Excellence. But yeah, like it's hard to like follow some of the stuff that they have coming out. But I don't know.
Yeah, they release a lot of books, and I mean, I think that's like the problem with like Marvel or the comics in general is just there's too many comics coming out at any given month.
And there's just like, I don't know, like I don't even know, like, is there any sort of continuity in Image? I feel like there's not, like with anything. Maybe like a handful of like specific people's books.
Besides Spawn and Savage Dragon.
Like, because you were saying like Top Cow before, and Top Cow is what, like Witchblade and
Darkness and the Steven Sedgwick stuff that comes out every so often. But like I haven't heard a book come out from Top Cow in a while.
Yeah.
It's also like not a brand that's on my radar at all.
Well, it's also like a terrible name for a brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just went to their website, and the top 3 things are Swing Volume 2, La Voz de Mayo Tata Rambo and Witchblade.
What?
What is a swing?
It looks like a very
Oh, it's a Sunstone spinoff. Whoa! I didn't even know they did spinoffs for Sunstone.
I don't even know what Sunstone is.
Yeah, I'm gonna
s-
say that too. I was just
Sun-
scared.
Sunstone is Steven Sedgwick's, like, that was a comic he was kind of doing before he, started doing like stuff for DC. And it's basically his like lesbian BDSM slice of life comic.
Okay, sweet.
Okay.
And now there's a spin-off.
Yeah, like well, it looks like Linda, like his wife Linda, like works on it still. Like there's still at least like someone of the original creative team working on it. But yeah, I'm gonna have to check. Yeah, that's cool. Hey, maybe we should shrug off creative comic companies as much as we do.
Hmm.
But yeah, there was one other story you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, so kind of connected. One of the I guess kind of main guys that was at Image for a while. So Liefeld has resigned from Marvel, which was like a couple days ago, and so he had been signed up for like a bunch of stuff. So, but he said this will be my last original cover for Marvel for the foreseeable future. After I've done 100 covers the last few years, I'm taking a pause. I'm also not continuing any interiors. That I put those on hold as well. G.I. Joe, Snake Eyes, and Creator Owned are on the desk. So he had Deadpool, Batter Blood, which was a sequel to, I guess, his last Deadpool book, was supposed to be coming out in a couple months. And then also he had plans for Major X for like 2 more volumes, which I guess are dead now as well. And part of this, I think last week, he tweeted and then deleted some shady practices over at Marvel, and then said, "Good long talk with my attorney. Good times to come, Bob Iger," who's the CEO, chairman, for like at least another year before he's retiring from Disney. And so, yeah, he has a bunch of stuff that he's leaving there. Apparently, in January, he nixed his deal with Netflix, where they were going to make something with his Extreme titles, which Jesus Christ, like I didn't know that was.
That was also like around the time like this new brand picked up the license for Youngblood, who seemed like the biggest pest. So it wouldn't surprise me if it was like somewhere along the lines that like he had to work with these people and he was just like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, he said it says in August, Liefeld canceled plans for more Youngblood projects from him, citing disagreements with the franchise co-owners.
Yeah, which would be the I think it's Terrific Entertainment,
Extreme Studios, and Awesome Comics.
Yeah, I don't think it's that terrific if we're talking about it like this.
Rosemary's Konar of Malibu Comics.
But yeah, they just seem very like I've seen like a couple stories about them.
Yeah,
just sound very like weird.
Yeah, which I guess is more of like Liefeld's been talking lots of shit recently over the last started during the summer where he was talking shit about DC, and then he was talking shit about Age of X or
I think he'll just talk about shit about anybody.
House of X, yeah. But like it's almost like anytime, because like people were like comparing it to Dark Phoenix, and then he like got all shitty about it online and was like, "Oh no, there's not even an end. It's not really a thing." It's like, dude, chill your goddamn deal. Like we know you're like at the time, like for some stuff, you were a big X-Men guy. Like I don't know, everything about him just always bugs the shit out of me. And it seemed like he let like the Deadpool movie stuff and the pouch kind of go to his head again and destroy that goodwill.
I mean, like, and I said this in our chat. Rob Liefeld, like, surprisingly, I think to like a lot of newer comic book readers, like, still numbers pretty well. Like, I believe Major X, like, the month it came out, was in the top 20 books for the month.
Which I can't remember where I heard, but somebody told me what Major X was, and I was like, "This is the dumbest shit I've heard."
I mean, it does, but like that's like every Rob Liefeld book.
Yeah, because he's like Storm and Wolverine's son from the future.
It is what it is. Like I didn't really get the joke of the pouch. Like I got it. Like I didn't think it was a very funny joke, but I got it.
I think the joke is more like, the joke is, he's finally acknowledging that he's a shitty artist. And
I don't think that's
I don't think
think
he
that's what it
actually
was.
did. I don't think that's what he was going for. And then like it's like, oh, he doesn't get the joke at all. Because that's like what it is. Because he's like a horrible artist. Like he can't draw hands and feet. He can't draw women. Everything has guns and pouches and bandoliers and I don't know, every weapon accessory, swords. I can't remember. Somebody wrote in the Phantom Zone thing that somebody brought him a Grey's Anatomy book and said, "I think you need this."
I think
At
that's
a
super
con.
shitty. I like regardless of like what you think of someone as like a writer or an artist, it's like it's like you're gonna like stand in line for like an hour to just hand this book to this guy, for like a photo
It's
op on your shitty Twitter. But at the same time, it's just like who cares? Like it's like obviously like people are in line, they like his art. Just let
I
people
think
like
it's
enjoy the thing.
I think it's more like he created like one of the most beloved comic book characters of all time. His art is like
Yeah, Cable.
and his art has always been a thing that everyone rips on. And then he also has a horrible reputation for the most part. Like I haven't heard anybody say anything ever good about meeting him or anything at a con or any of those kind of things. Like he just I don't know if it's like from the era he was in and he was young and he got big really quick and I don't know. It's kind of like similar stuff I've heard about Magnola, although like they're not like art wise in the same worlds, but like
Yeah.
I feel like there's like getting young and like being young and blowing up super fast maybe is like an ego trip thing. So I don't know. It's really shitty what that person did, but it's also fucking hilarious. I would never do that because that's a lot of effort, but I don't know. I think it's funny in an extremely dickish way.
I think it's like a better Twitter burn than it is like an actual burn. It's kind of sad on the person's part that they waited that long, in my
Mhm.
opinion, that they waited that long to hand this dude this book and just to get the look of like kind of being a piece of shit. Like if he tweeted that at Rob Liefeld, that's kind of funny because it's like internet humor more than it is physical humor.
Mhm. All right. So, why don't we talk about anything anybody else was reading before we get on to talk about X-Men issue 1?
Please go read the new Doctor Doom. It's very good. I
Yeah,
didn't
like
think
I
I'd be
didn't
seeing
even
that
know that I didn't see that on the thing. When did that come out?
today. Like I was just at my shop and the guy was like, "Hey, you might like this," and I said, "Sure, fuck it," and I really like it.
And he's like, no cursing in my store, young man.
True, he did say that, and now I'm banned.
Yeah, I'm not seeing like what's the full title of it? Is it just like
It's
Doctor Doom?
just Doctor Doom.
Hmm. Yeah, because I definitely when I looked through Marvel, I didn't notice that, but I also completely apparently walked by and did not notice the Superman fights the Klan book.
Yep. I did not pick it up, but it's in my box because I'm low on money, and it's like a $10
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, I
But
think it's 3-ish. It'll be 3, so I'll probably wait for the trade.
but the interiors are done by Gary Hiryu, and like
It looks
I've said,
great.
I've said this before. Like I think that they are like a top 5 artist and should be like on the biggest book, and it's like really cool to see them on like I think like a fairly big Superman book. I've seen people post stories about it online.
I mean, that's a pretty great title already. I'm not even a big Superman fan.
It's based off of an old audio drama from like
Was it like the 40s or
the
something, or
40s. Sounds about right.
yeah, that was actually on, and that has like some real. They used actual like undercover stuff with the Klan to write it, and I think I can't remember. We talked about it a while ago, a couple months ago, and there's actually like strong evidence. I think someone wrote a paper on it, basically saying that there's evidence that it actually greatly reduced the number of people like membership of the Klan, that radio show, because that's how like respected Superman was.
Wow. Well, you know what? Whatever gets people out of that hell cult is it's good by me.
Mm-hmm.
I've finally gotten around to finishing Laura Dean. Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up with Me, which was the new book from Mariko Tamaki, and art by Rosemary Valeria O'Connell. Mariko Tamaki, a lot of people know her from like her DC work with Harley Quinn Breaking Glass, which was the new DC Inc. book. She also did some Marvel work with X-23 and She-Hulk. But she's kind of like known for in the like award circuit for like This One Summer and Skim, and this is kind of like her new big book that's kind of like making the rounds from first second press, and it's basically about this girl named Freddie who is currently dating this girl named Laura Dean, who's like the most popular girl, but it's like a very kind of like one-sided relationship where Laura and Freddie are together and Freddie's happy, but Laura, like, you know, it's like she's like kind of just everywhere. And they break up so often. And like Laura will come back and just like say, "Hey, like, you know, like let's go out and have dinner." It's just, it's like there's just like something very like magnetizing about Laura. But like, you know, Freddie's like she's happy, but she's not happy. And so the whole entire book is like kind of told in a way where Freddie is writing to this advice columnist named Anna Weiss about, you know, like what she should do, and it kind of spans
Her
like
name is Anna Weiss, like Anal Weiss.
I did not think of it
I
that way.
figured more like advice.
Yeah,
but,
I
like-
thought of like Anna Weiss, like
Yeah, well, I mean, like that's a German word. I can't remember.
Is it?
Yeah, because it's in like what is that? It's in the song in Sound of Music.
I'm sorry, man. I haven't seen Sound of Music since I was in high school.
Continue. I am looking it up.
Oh, it's fine. But yeah, like it's not even just like the relationship with Freddie and Laura that's like a strain on Freddie, but it's like Freddie's relationship with like her friend, who goes by the name Doodle. It's like a nickname, but it's like their relationship strained. Freddie's relationship with their friends becomes strained, and it's like a really kind of good book about like breaking up, and I think it's like a lot of fun. It's really good young queer romance stuff. So I thought it was, and
Okay.
I think for second press like always releases like a lot of like really cool stuff.
So I did look it up though. It's Edelweiss. It's a flower that grows in the Alps. It's probably not related to that. It just made me think of it.
Okay.
Was there any other books that people read?
I mean, I got caught up on like Absolute Carnage and Miles Morales and stuff, but it's whatever.
Yeah, I'm like really backlined on books because I had to read or listen to a really long book. And I picked up the newest issue of History of the Marvel Universe. I'm going to read through that at some point. And then I'm trying to I don't know how to feel about this, but they're kind of doing these interesting, it's like DC's What If, but through like the dark universe. Have either of you guys seen this?
No.
No.
So the newest one, which they did tease one, which is What If the Black Knight, like the Black Lanterns won Blackest Night. And then the one that came out this week was, I believe, if Jean-Paul Valley stayed Batman after Nightfall.
These
And like
sound
was
like
not
terrible books.
Yeah, they're all like what ifs. I can't remember what the other one. It's like, you know, the Marvel what ifs. They're more like so they're
Well, sure, but it's like the idea of a what if is supposed to be like an idea that's like kind of interesting, or like but like what if Jean Paul Valley continued to be Batman? I'm like, yeah, I would not want to read that.
It's Tales of the Dark Multiverse, Batman Nightfall.
That's what those books were. I just assumed they were reprints.
No. So it's like him in a very like Azrael Batman costume that looks badass holding up Batman. It's all hail Saint Batman. Yeah, it's a very what if multiple Earths kind of thing. So yeah, the one that they said I know is they're doing one like Dark Universe if the Black Lanterns won. Like what would have happened? No, I don't mind them like playing around with this stuff a bit more, like Marvel style. Like with these what ifs, I hope that there's other ones in the future. I feel like this book though, if anybody's like, oh, Batman should kill, I'll just be like, all right, let me send you this book.
Now let me prove you why he shouldn't.
Yeah, although this is written by Scott Snyder.
Oh, that's a get for me.
Yeah, so
I'll look that up at least.
Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see what other stuff they come out with. I do like the design of the Jean-Paul Valley Batman. I do always and will always have a soft spot for that character because I love how much of a fuck you he was to comic book readers. Because that's basically, they created him because and Bane basically like, oh, like it's the 90s. Oh, you guys want Batman to kill people. All right, let's make a Batman that kills the shit out of people. Oh, you guys all hate it? Well, no shit.
But I feel like there's like a lot more upward potential for Bane than there was, and I think there has been since then.
Oh yeah, well, there's a
But-
reason why Bane's had 2 movie versions of himself. He's had multiples of his own book, or being like he's been
and,
King's
both-
major villain for like 2 years.
and both were bad.
Oh, his movie versions?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're hard. But he's been in every single animated version of everything there is a version of him. Yeah,
Because I mean, he's a great cartoon character.
yeah. Well, he has a very simple, iconic look, and he's both like in everything except for movies. He is both a physical threat and a like psychological, like cerebral threat to Batman. The movies, for some reason, decide that he is only strong, and then rest of it is he's dumb.
Or British.
Well, if I don't want to get into a whole Dark Knight Rises thing, but if you actually look at the plot of that movie, none of the plans are his; they're all Talia's.
Yeah.
So
it's
he's once
stupid.
again
It's
he's just a
very
big
dumb.
dumb guy. And how is he solved? Oh, Batman punches him harder in the face.
Yeah.
Which I can't remember what I was listening to, and they were talking. There's like a term for that.
He also
in
got
writing?
hit by the Batmobile, right?
No, the Catwoman drove the motorcycle into him.
Oh, that's right.
Who also they never call Catwoman. All right. So why don't we talk about?
One more book I actually been keeping up on. So a couple of weeks ago, I talked about how I am currently trying to get caught up on One Piece.
Oh yeah.
And
How's that going?
so when we last left off John Seiler reading or watching One Piece, I was at the very end of Water 7, right before Ennie's Lobby, which was like the big arc where the like Robin, who's like this kind of like newer member of the group, has left, and now the Straw Hat crew like go and try and get her back. But she's like basically a prisoner of the world government. And Ennie's Lobby's arc is basically all about that, where it's like the Straw Hats, the Frankie family, the Galley-La Carpenters, like basically like everyone you met in like Water 7 going up against the world government. And it's great. Like it's so good. And I think it's like very like it's like when I think it's I talked about how Skypiea was just so bad, and like Water 7 was like a really good rebound, like, and Ennie's Lobby just like kind of continues. So I finished that, and then I finished the next arc, which is called Thriller Bark, which was basically the Straw Hat crew gets lost on an island that's like filled with ghosts, and so like
What?
yeah, so they end up like before they find themselves on Thriller Bark, they end up meeting up with this skeleton named Brooke, who how like okay, so in One Piece everyone has like there's like these things called devil fruits that give people powers.
Yeah, that's
And
how
so,
Luffy
like-
got his stretchy ability,
So
right?
Brooke is a devil fruit user who ate it, and the devil fruit's ability is that when he dies, he's resurrected. So he dies and he's resurrected, and all of his skin is gone. So he's basically like a skeleton man just walking around.
Does he still feel?
Yes, he does.
So he's just like in constant, like he's just in constant pain from lack of skin.
No, so he he can get into a fight and he can get hurt, but like him not having a skeleton like is not painful. Like he even like it's a little bit of an annoying character trait, but he'll just joke about how he's like, oh, like he's like, I can't believe my eyes, or if I had eyes, I wouldn't believe them because he has no eyes.
But he's still able to see. What's his character's name?
Brooke. But it's funny because like he'll also just cry. Like and that's like a thing that like a lot of One Piece characters do. Is they cry a lot because they're all good. They're all good people. But yeah, and Brooke is like takes like a little bit getting used to, but he's pretty fun. So what happens is like they, along with Brooke, get caught on Thriller Bark, which is this giant island, and it's ruled by this guy named Gecko Moria, who is like one of the 7 warlords of the sea, like one of the worst people like to ever run into in this world. And his whole power is he steals people's shadows and he puts them into corpses and makes them into zombies. And his whole deal is like he's going to be king of the pirates without ever lifting a finger because he's basically got super badass army that he'll just never have to do anything. And his like underlings are pretty cool. Like there's this girl named Perona who's like she's like a princess of zombies, and her whole thing is like she can like send out ghosts that make you feel bad.
Depression. So she just controls depression.
Yeah. Like I'm sorry. It's not even just depression, it's just complete despair. And
Oh, okay. That's
and, like,
fucking metal.
and she has it's like everyone has funny laughs because like and that's also like another thing of the series is like everyone has unique laughs, so which is like kind of like a funny like kind of thing that like write into a book is that everyone has like their own distinct laugh. And yeah, like Thriller Bark is like a lot of fun. It's not very like high, it's it's like it's not as high stakes as Ennie's Lobby kind of felt, but it's still like there's a lot of danger involved, and there's like a set time of like we have to do a thing before this thing happens, or we're all doomed. And you get like a better idea of how the world government is in league with the warlords and how they just kind of let them do things, and how everything's just kind of falling apart for the world government because the Straw Hat Pirates are just fucking up everything. But yeah, like that's a pretty cool arc. And I'm like right at the beginning of Saboti, which is like they go to the Fishman Isle where you get to see like mermaids and fish people, and there's like a couple returning characters who like we haven't seen in like 400 episodes.
Wow.
And
Jesus.
and like pretty soon, we should be meeting Boa Hancock, who's like a really big kind of major character within the series. So it's like very much of an upward swing for the series, like after Skypiea, which I would all like. One Piece is like super like fun. I think like for Skypiea, just read the cliff notes and then just like kind of go on afterwards.
Okay.
And
I
it's
have
a
been
very
thinking about
solid
it.
read. Or watch. Watch it. Like I like to watch it because I have it on as background noise. But there are like times where I feel like if I was reading this, it wouldn't meander around as much because you could tell like even in Thriller Bark, there's like a big fight with like, this giant zombie named Ors that takes like 20 episodes, and it doesn't need to be 20 episodes. Like it feels like it could have been 10. But
It's
that's just
probably
like
an issue that, like, what do you call it? That they always do when they are like caught up, and they always have to like fill. Like it's filler, but like they just like extend stuff out all the time.
Also, like if I were to recommend watching it, I have a guide with me that basically tells me like here are the story episodes, here's what you can
Ooh.
skip.
You can send that to me because I know before we like switch topics, I caught up to and watched My Hero Academia, and then
Oh,
I
hell
watched
yeah.
the first episode, and I was like, yeah, this is definitely a show that's like in my alley. I like that kind of fighting stuff. It's like, but it's like really well done. I like
Yeah,
the
fun
world.
superhero fights.
Which again, if you don't watch anime, basically that show is an anime comic book world. Is like
It's like all the best qualities of superhero comics in a really great anime. Like all the characters are like so good, and
yeah.
like the fights are great. Like how far you said you're completely up
Oh,
to date?
I just watched the episode to the newest season that came out
Okay,
this
cool.
week.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet, but like last season, like there's like a fight with All Might that's just like
Oh, it's so good.
heartbreaking. It's so
Oh.
good.
It's so good.
And
And I do
like,
think like, it put into my mind like, oh, like this is something. I don't think it's like it's kind of like the concept of the world. It's like it's kind of very X-Men, which we can roll into. Is like, all right, for some reason at a certain point in time, humans start having abilities, like mutants, but they don't say that because they don't want to get sued. They call them quirks, right? But they're very much like mutants. And then at some point, they are 80% of the population, I think.
yeah.
And so they have to create this new economy is created where basically people have to pay. Basically, all crime is taken care of by heroes, and cops just kind of come and cuff people and then put them in a prison. And same with like fires and all that stuff. And so like it's this whole payment system in for heroes. I was like, oh, this is kind of like a weird, realistic idea of like what that world would look like that no one's ever ventured into.
Mhm.
It's basically the island nation of Krakoa.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was
As
gonna
the
say
world.
like I was gonna say this is like X-Men, but done with like a world that doesn't hate X-Men. So,
Yeah, well, but the thing is, like, yeah, and then when you get into the show, it has like a whole bunch of issues, and there's like social issues of those who are without quirks or their quirks are kind of useless, and then there's just like I'm trying to think of like one of the weird like because a lot of their stuff is like, oh, this is very X-Men. I guess the only difference is there's like machine stuff in there that like is way beyond like what we've seen in any sort of mutant. Like I can't remember the character, but the one that has like the rocket legs. That's like the class.
Ida.
He's like, yeah, like his power is like weird because he has like machine legs. Like they're literally like jet engines in his legs. That's like not a mutant thing. But most of the other people have like.
I think it's like kind of like a thing where it's like he was born to basically like be able to pump like I think it's like air like out of his legs, and so it's like you build these apparatuses like around so like it doesn't like hurt him.
Yeah, like it's like some characters they like really delve into like how their character like Baku like his sweat is like nitroglycerin, and then he's able to spark it.
Yeah, and his gauntlets are grenades.
Yes, well, he has them built so that they collect his sweat.
they're just big, sweaty punching bags.
Yeah. So like, it's very. I was like watching this, like, oh, if I need to sell this to somebody like right now, I would say, especially if you like the kind of X-Men world idea of mutants, and if you like superheroes, it's something to check out. I think I might actually go and read the manga, which is something I tend to do. It's what I did with Bleach, which is what 70 to 80% filler, the animated part, and is what I did with Naruto. So yeah, I might go do that. But we can now transition to X-Men number 1.
Also, quick side note: who is best girl?
Very important.
Frog Girl.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Yeah.
You passed the test.
I can't remember her name right now.
Yeah. Suyu Froppy.
Shit.
Yeah, she's great.
Well, I like her. I do like. I think the best power set is the girl that can like create things. Like her power set is insanely OP if she could actually use it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So there's like also like a really cool thing about the manga. Well, at least for the first couple volumes is like when you see like all these notes from the writer artist talking about like the power sets, how he came up with them, or like their costumes, or how he incorporated them. And there's like a really kind of cool note about her, how originally she was designed to be a character who was a teacher at the school, but her power set was like so powerful that he thought it would make better sense to have her as a student, because it's like you don't want to have like a super OP character like just kind of be there.
She would be so OP because basically, like for those listening, she can. I'm trying to think of like how to say this. She can like turn like stuff in her body into actual objects if she knows the molecular structure.
Yeah, it's like alchemy, but like
yes,
she can use like her body as the creative makeup for the things that she makes. But like much like how like in alchemy it requires like a certain amount of energy and payment for it, so it's not something like she could just like think of, you know.
It's also like limited by her imagination, so it's also very Green Lantern-y in that way.
Yeah,
because like there's a lot of times where it's like, oh, she just isn't imaginative enough to like. It's like, oh, shield. It's like, come on, like you can actually make anything. But then there are some times when she makes stuff that's super useful.
Yeah, she made a fucking cannon. That was awesome.
But yeah, everyone's great. All the teachers are really good. I think it's paced pretty well. I know people say season 1 is slow, but like I didn't think
it's all character development. That's the whole thing.
It's like Breaking Bad, where it's super short. The first season's like 12 episodes, and most of it is character development. Then you get those last 4 episodes that you see why they had to spend 6 episods building up to that, because like those last 4 episodes cost money.
I would say like kind of similarly like a show that has so many characters. Like Game of Thrones. They have to introduce you. The class itself is what, like 15 kids plus like all the teachers. Like
Yeah.
that's a lot of characters.
Yeah, and then like you get the like the kids who want to be villains who are all great. And then like there's even like spin-off manga about vigilantes, like people who want to be heroes but they don't really believe in the ideals of the school, so they become rogue superheroes. It's like
Oh,
pretty cool.
all right. Well, I think we can talk about X-Men. So we're not going to become an X-Men podcast, but I did think it was important. I don't know if we'll go through all of these first X books, but I think we'll check in on specific ones that we all, if we all like them. I'm gonna get all the number ones. I mean, like going forward, I think we'll only check in if there's like a big event, or like to specifically talk about if there's like one that like 3 of us are reading or 2 of us are reading, we could talk about. Maybe we'll only stick to like the main X-Men line for a bit. But I did like this book. This is kind of I would say this is almost a complete sequel to the next. Like it's called X-Men, but it's kind of following exactly what was left in the other books. I'm sure at some point it's going to kind of split off more. So this, I did think it was interesting. So we get the little intro with like Cyclops and Professor X, and then we get a look at this team. This is a big ass team.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in this one.
There's 12 members currently. So it's Cyclops, Storm, Polaris, Magneto, Dr. Reyes, who's a character I don't know and has not been in the other issues. Jean, Havoc, Vulcan, Wolverine, Kid Cable, who they're just calling Cable, Prestige, which is not Hope, Rachel Summers, and Corsair. Which, what the shit's happening with Rachel that she's like super emo?
I mean, are you talking about the spikes?
Yeah.
The spikes have always been a part of her costume.
Yeah, I don't know. She seems like, well, yeah, because I don't think we need to go super deep into this one as we did the other ones. I like the scene with Cyclops and Storm. They're attacking. I have no idea how to pronounce the name of the place. The group.
The Orcus?
The Orcus? Yeah.
That's how I've always pronounced it.
And like they're having a really cool conversation because like Storm is exhausted because they've been hitting all these places. And she's like, all this stuff. And then they go through the thing. It's like, oh, they're not leaving. They're just kind of all standing in a spot. And they're like, oh, that's weird. They're like, oh, and they kind of like, well, this is where we are. And it's like, okay. And then you get the ceiling rips open and it's Magneto and Polaris. And he's like, oh, it'd be nice if I like came down there and there wasn't any rebel rabble. And Polaris just like pushes everybody out of the way and then they seal them in a room like Cyclops seals them. And then we get, which I think a lot of the human stuff is the more interesting parts of this issue.
Are we gonna like gloss over the fact that they fight a bunch of intelligent apes?
No, we haven't gotten that. I haven't gotten to that.
I wouldn't let that pass.
So we get stuff with like the scientists and like, oh, we have an 80% backup, but we're not going to turn everything over or destroy it. What are the two ways? It's like the Forge and the Hub. So they are the hub, and the Forge is where the mother mold was, and then they eject themselves and turn themselves on to mini Gorilla Grods. And yeah, just like, you guys go have fun. I'm gonna go play with these.
Which I feel like is just a total like next wave callback.
Yeah, so they like de-evolve themselves because they even say like, oh, like
look, they scream, be careful, they're sure to be savvy. All these apes have PhDs.
Yes! Oh yeah. My god!
They had so much fun writing this.
And this isn't like the only line in the book. Like there's like a couple of different times where I'm just like, Hickman's like really having fun with this.
Yeah, like the one guy before, he's injecting himself. These monsters can have my science when they pry from my cold dead fingers.
Yes.
Evolution is unyielding, unapologetic master. The truth is we're too civilized to deal with these vandals. It's like these scientists are like ridiculous. And so yeah, Magneto just like goes off, and then Polaris, Storm, and Cyclops are like, oh, there's kids in tubes, which is very reminiscent of what we saw in the Apocalypse timeline. And then and I want to ask, this first character they rescue, the one that's like in negative art, she's a post-human. So is that
I saw something on Reddit about this, but I don't know how factual.
Yeah, I was like, oh, is this supposed to imply like she's a early stage of the blue people?
I would probably assume so.
Yeah, so that's what I thought. But so she comes out, she's like, what the shit? And then she's basically like, oh, they didn't cook me long enough, which I think is literally what she says.
Yeah.
She's a child of the vault. I don't know what
Yeah.
that means.
She says, I emerged before I was fully cooked, a child born out of time. And they're like, okay.
Put me back in the kiln.
Yeah. So she disappears. Magneto's like, we have to go and get her. Cyclops is like, no. Our priority is to get the children, and then we'll have like the council will meet on this. And then it cuts to like, let's get the children home, and we get like, oh, there's a shit ton of kids, and they all have wild superpowers. Because there's like a tentacle girl, like a fire dude, a girl with bat wings, a giant baby thing. Yeah, is a leaf guy, and then there looks like twins, a gold and a silver, which we see more of, and that's when we get this other character. Now, this is Dr. The hell's her name?
Reyes.
Yeah, is this a character that's existed before?
People seem to think that she showed up in a Mike Carey X-Men book.
Which the most interesting part of all this is that we get kind of like, oh, we have healers here, and then we have empaths and telepaths to deal with the psychological damage. It's like, oh, it's kind of interesting to like see how they're dealing with like people, like they're using kind of others with powers to help counsel people. It's really interesting. And then we get the children chanting, Magneto's back, Magneto. And then Magneto's just like surrounded by all these kids. I'm like, oh, I wish I was with you to beat the shit out of them. He's like, you won't have to. You won't have to. He's like, I fought all this. Like, so you didn't have to. He's like, well, what if they come? I'm not afraid. And he's like, you won't have to, for I am Magneto. Let man run from me. And then all the kids are just chanting it.
Yeah,
and then,
that's so good.
Yeah, well, I like to like it cuts to Cyclops and Polaris looking on.
I'm sorry. I was confused. Cecilia Reyes is Scotland.
Oh wow, so that's a deep pull.
Or not 70s. 1997. Sorry.
No.
Still
deep pull. That's 20 years ago.
But yeah, she was introduced in Operation Zero Tolerance.
So no drugs.
So is she a mutant? I would assume so. She's on Krakoa. But I like this.
Cecilia can generate force fields described as cyclomatic biofeed spikes. So yeah, basically she could kind of just do a bunch of stuff.
Okay. I do like, which we kind of will get into, this like conversation between Cyclops and Polaris. And she's like, oh, you know, all this is getting like embarrassing. And he's like, he's waited so long to do this. We all have. And she's like, oh, you headed home? Yeah, my dad's here. So Alex is there too. Like, it's Alex, you know, you're welcome to come. And she's like, yeah, maybe next time. Like, I'm still finding my way. And, you know, maybe when the past is in the past. Because for anyone that doesn't know, were they married, Polaris and Havoc? Or were they just like together for like 40 years?
They were just together for a very long time.
Yeah. So basically have this conversation, and then they're like, yeah, you know, here's kind of some stuff, and, you know, there's nothing he could, like, and then they have this conversation where, like, he's talking about his son. I was like, is he talking about Cable? Like, he never raised Cable. What the hell is he talking about?
I think he's talking about, like, when Nathaniel Christopher Daysprings Summers was, like, a baby.
Yeah, which...
Before, like, the baby fell into the...
technogenic virus, and they had to send it to the future.
Yeah. Classic.
Which again, it's like, okay, that's the one he had with Madeline, right?
Yes.
Okay, because again, I don't want to go into our multiple Nate Gray, Nate Summers. That's cool. It's like, oh, do you really mean all that? And she's like, yeah. And then we get, oh, this is when we cut to where the mother mold was. They have their funeral, and then we got weird, not Dr. Octopus guy talking to Omega Sentinel and kind of all their stuff. And then, I don't know, was there any of these parts that you found interesting until we get to...
It's still more world building. I need to see more in this. Like, I like all this wordy world building stuff, but it doesn't really mean that much right now.
Yeah, I kind of don't really care about this.
All right, so then we get to where the fun begins, I think.
The meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
Yes, that Vulcan's burning. But yeah, so
okay, so like the last time we saw Vulcan, he was just like being a dick on like some planet, and now it's like I just was like whiplash. I was like watching him like cook meat on a grill.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the one page before that's really cool with Cyclops and Corsair. Yeah. Then it cuts to this weird like Vulcan is grilling steak, and Logan is there in his costume without his mask. Is like. He's like, oh, that's like the fire matches the fire inside me. And it's like, he's just so douchey. And then Wolverine's like, I'm going to fight you. I want my steak rare. And he's like, peace. You know, like, I will give you your steak rare. And he goes, thank you. Medium rare. And then it's like, Wolverine's like, "You son of a," and like throws his spear.
Yeah, so this is basically like a giant cookout with like the Summers family
Well,
and the
that's what you
Starjammers.
that's what you
And
think. I think the Starjammers are definitely just visiting, but like you're like, oh, they're having some sort of party because the Starjammers are there. It's like, no, when we get to it, like this housing situation is very interesting.
well,
Mhm.
I mean, like sure, but it's like they're at the Summers house.
Yes.
Like, and it's like this big cookout. Like Hesba is like talking to Rachel. Kid Cable is like, I don't know this other guy, but they're talking about guns.
Yeah, he's been around forever. I just don't know the character's name. And yeah, Rachel's being all weird and stoic and emo.
I think it's also just the art. I don't think the art is particularly good in this book.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
with you there. I'm thinking.
it's-
there's like Francis Linnell Yu books don't tend to look like this, and I don't know if it's the coloring that could be bad, but
I think a lot of it is like they all have a lot of work to do, so everything is very simple.
Mhm.
Like if you look at the one panel on, I don't know what page it's on, it's after the Kid Cable stuff on the right, like the page across from it. So you have like Vulcan, it's like Vulcan, it's like the one where you see everybody and like Logan and stuff. It's like, oh, it's very, very basic, like basic line work. Everyone's very, very simply drawn. Like everything is like, it's very quick. It's not terrible, it's just quick, I think is like how I would call it.
Mhm.
And then after that, we get Havoc delivers his dad their gift, which they're like, oh, it's a plant. He's like, oh, it's a plant.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
and
coral
they're-
flower. So it's
Yeah.
like now, like Corsair and the Starjammers can now be a part of the X-Men books at any given time.
Yeah, then we get more like they just give Vulcan like these ridiculous lines. He's like, it warms my heart, which already aflame is like pouring heat upon heat. It's the fire of 1,000 suns. Like, okay, Gabe, he gets it. I'm only like this because I grew up without a strong male role model.
I love that.
Yeah, and then we get the layout of the Summers house.
Yeah.
Which
This
I
is what
feel like-
everybody likes. This is what everybody's been gravitating towards.
yes, how rooms 10, 11, and 12
Let's
are
get right into it.
very interesting.
So, like on the one side, we get the idea that they're on the blue area of the moon. They describe it, all the different elevations. That there's like, oh, so they're all bullshit. So then in the Summers house on the right side, we get the floor plan of the house and where everyone's individual rooms are.
Yes.
Room
Oh.
15 is currently empty.
Yeah, so on the left side is Rachel, an empty room and Cable, then empty Havoc and Vulcan. Then there's the main kitchen, living, and dining room area, and then we have the other three rooms
Cyclops, Wolverine, and Jean, which
with Jean in between them.
Jean
with
is
what
between them.
With based on this, what appears to be connecting doorways to both of those rooms.
Not even connecting doorways.
There's no door.
There is no door.
Yeah, there's no doors between them.
I imagine it's just like a bead curtain.
Yeah, fucking wild.
Yep.
Well, they just finally came out and said it. You know, they're living that poly life now because of Nightcrawler's decree. Need more fucking.
Well, the other thing is, like, I guess to assume from this that Emma and Scott are dunzo as like a couple. She's not living there. Like, that's not her thing.
You know,
She didn't get her own room, which again, like,
there's two
if
open
Scott-
rooms.
yeah, if Scott and Jean are together, them having separate rooms, like, it goes into this, like, this is because I feel like Scott and Jean and Scott and Emma are like kind of the only main.
What
Are there
about
any
Jean?
other like?
What about Jean and Emma?
No, but I mean, like, of like the historically like couples in the X-Men, it's Scott and either Jean or Scott and Emma, depending on if Jean is alive. Like, there aren't any other big couples, are there? Well, I guess Havoc and Polaris, but we've already gone over that they're not together.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But-
It's just, yeah, they're into that poly life swinging style.
But then there's like this pretty nice like conversation between Cyclops and Corsair. It's sweet. They're doing
Yeah,
the
like when-
dishes.
Yeah, I like. He's like, oh, son, that's disgusting. I think I'm going to vomit. He's like, no. Disgusting is when Krakoa wanted to give us plates that were also edible, or no, that would improve our digestion.
Ooh.
And it's like plates with the goo was a compromise. I do have to say, like, in the art in this, I don't know why, but like the way they're drawing Cyclops with the sunglasses, he looks like Wonder Man. I guess it's just like the hair and the style of.
I was going to say
Sunglasses
he looks
again?
like David Duchovny, like mid X-Files.
Oh, I can see that. It's like a Johnny Cage kind of thing where he just looks like super square jawed, and then the
Yeah.
glasses are very like. I know he always has the ruby shades, but like I don't know. It's again goes to that like simple art.
Mhm.
I think Corsair's drawn much better.
Yeah, because he has facial hair, and like you need to have that.
Yeah, and then we get our last couple of pages, which I think are interesting. So we get kind of a little bit of a backstory to this other doctor character, and we see the other doctor that was on the mother mold, and then she presents a crystal and how to bring him back. It's like, oh, is she thinking of using the crystal Shi'ar kind of style crystal, just like the X-Men are using? Is that what we're supposed to get from this?
I mean, yeah, it's a red crystal, so it could be like, I don't know, it could be Shi'ar, it could be Sidorak thing, it could be a
Yes.
Sinister thing.
Yeah, those are
Red
kind of the
crystals
things.
are pretty ominous.
Yeah. But specifically, it's like, oh, what's that? It's like, would you like to know my secret director? He's like, what's that? I know how to bring him back. So like, we had learned in the other books that they were backing up the people's information, the mutants' information, onto Shi'ar crystals for a point. But I guess you would have had to have a backup. I don't know. It's like it's an interesting way for it to end. It's cool. We don't get as much like craziness. It's the first book. I think it's interesting to show that like, oh, this is going to be the X-Men's main antagonist villain for the series. In this specific X-Men book is the, what were they called again? The
Orcus.
The Orcus. So I think that they're an interesting group because they even went into like, oh, like they have like some of their members are shitty, like from Hydra and from other stuff. So
yeah, well, they're willing to look past those dumb.
Mm-hmm. And so I believe, let me see, the next book that comes out is actually one of the other ones I know I'm hyped for. I think, John, you said you were specifically hyped for too, which is Marauders, which we will probably get our Red King in.
Yeah,
Shadowcat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, you know, I know in my comic book store, I'll say, like, I showed you guys in the thing, like, I got a pack of cards.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, those are cards. I thought they were like little posters.
No, they're like trading cards, and then each one is the cover of each of the first issues. On the back, it says the teams.
Cool.
So it's a good reference. And then one of the cards is the Krakoa translations.
Yeah, that's actually kind of handy, considering how heavily they're relying on that.
So the Marauders team is real interesting because it's kind of like, what was I going to say? Elemental, because it's Storm, Pyro, Iceman, Kitty, Lockheed, Bishop, and Emma. But like Storm, Pyro, and Iceman is an interesting combo.
You have all your elemental extremes covered.
Yeah, because Storm can help augment either of them. Although like Iceman's like Omega level, but like she can.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, I was gonna say like Storm could really help with like Pyro's abilities of like creating more wind to force fire,
That's
like fire nados.
Yeah, I was just gonna say like in the last book, in Powers, they were talking about Charles like thinking of mutants strategically and like pairing them together and to like maximize their power output, and that's a very good point. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, and also like with Bishop there, which if I remember his powers correctly, he can like absorb energy and then channel it into like objects, kind of like Gambit, but like it's why he has his guns. I think he can channel it into his guns. I think that's how his powers work.
It's pretty 90s.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically, but it's something like that. It's like energy manipulation. So like he is definitely interesting on that team. And it does show Emma with them, but I doubt Emma's actually on the boat, but she's looking boss as fuck. But I do love like Kitty is wearing her like old school like blue and yellow X-Men costume just with a sword and like a red scarf kind of thing. And then everybody else is just in their normal costumes.
Sometimes you need some alterations. Sometimes you just got to stick with what's good.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of bummed this isn't Mohawk Storm, but I think I'll live.
She's definitely like has like a different look, at least in the X-Men book. Like she's not gigantic flowing hair. She's a little bit more like that in Marauders, but she has like kind of an interesting hairdo going on.
Okay. I guess I'll see next week. We'll all see next week.
Okay, so I looked up what Bishop can absorb all types of energy and then project that energy from his body in the form of concussive blast. So he can absorb magic and psychic energy as well.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's
so literally Storm could just hit him with lightning bolts.
Yeah, just juice him up.
Or Emma can hit him with like psychic stuff. Yeah, because his powers like he's nearly invulnerable because he can just absorb everything.
Man, breaking news from the Variety: Jonah has passed on.
Yeah, I saw that. I don't know if there's anything I would have wanted him to play. I'm sure everyone's like, oh,
rumor was it was the Riddler, and I think that would have been like a pretty cool choice.
Yeah, yeah, that would have been fine. I don't know, like I don't know if I care anymore about having the Riddler. I didn't.
I love the Riddler.
Yeah, I like him. Oh, that is a book that got announced. That just reminded me. I don't know why. Didn't a question book, Black Label question book, get announced this week?
I do not.
Yeah, I think so. Which is like amazing. Do a quick Google search. Yeah, they are doing a Black Label Joker book and a Black Label question book. It's called Joker Killer Smile and the question: The Deaths of Vic Sage.
Cool.
So, which is good because we've seen little bits of him. Although, I guess in current continuity, there are 2 questions based on the Leviathan thing because he is the question and Montoya is also the question. So, I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we dropped out of here?
Nah.
No, I'm good.
All right. So, we will catch you guys next week. And, yeah, don't forget to check out all the other shows. There's the new show called 3 a.m. Files where we're talking about spooky stuff and some other stuff coming out. And
does it actually get like recorded at 3 a.m.?
No, I think we have
Cheaters.
gone. We went.
You're like, why? You're like, John, you're blowing the gimmick. Stop.
No. Yeah, I think we went to like 1:30 was like one of them. But that's East. I guess I'm East Coast, so it's like 1:30 my time.
I mean,
it's all
time's
like
relative.
yes, it's all spooky stuff, and I don't even know how to. I don't know. Give it a listen. It's funny. I've somehow become the skeptic of it as like devil advocate skeptic. So, yeah, check that out. All the other shows, and yeah, we'll catch you guys next time.
I love you.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, I'm surprised. I thought you were gonna go with something with like the poly angle.
Man, I don't.
Nothing. Guess. Empty.
I'm actually sorry. I got distracted looking at this Chris Anka, Emma Frost cover for Marauders. It's so good.
All right, I'll leave it there.
Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
And now, comics.